when you've had a Kundalini awakening, Kundalini rising, what's the last thing that happens with your sexual appetite? Your sexuality plays no role here because you have no sexuality. Once you have a Kundalini rising, depending on where the Kundalini has decided to go and sit, through which you are then going to experience your humanness. For some people, if your Kundalini is going to finally find its resting space or its space, and you're going to be more upper heavy, those are the kind of people who are here to guide, to teach, to even just set an example by just the way they are. Now, a lot of these people, you will have heard of them. They will be celibate in any event. They would have gone past the cycle of birth and death. Going past the cycle of birth and death and being bereft of any karma because you are no longer continuing with that, you don't become suddenly immune to cause and effect, but you do become immune to the impact of cause and effect. So there is still a cause and effect, but you're not internalizing the experience around you, which is why you can be there but not be that experience. So when you experience a Kundalini rising and you've gone past that stage, then your appetite for sex no longer exists, because you see sex in everything and everywhere, but not the sex that we have been conditioned to believe in. So not the sex that is sensual gratification, although this is a sort of a sensual gratification, but not one that is contracting, not one that has any mind in it, but you experience that coming together of opposites, or coming together to create something all around you, in nature, in life, everywhere. And this is where not only do you become more pro-life, more procreation, but this is where now, folks, you want to do something bigger than just you. This is where you switch from karma to dharma, and you will have made that switch from karma to dharma quite a while back, again depending on where your Kundalini has arisen to. Now, if you haven't done the full cycle of Kundalini and you are, still living a normal life, maybe you're married, maybe you have children, maybe you're living a normal life, but you're living like a liberated person, not very attached to everything, but floating through life. Or maybe you are somebody who's discovered all these things, and you want to bring parallels of that same discovery to the masses. You want to work for that. This is where the Lok Kalyanam comes in. Again, it is not to say that you've not had a Kundalini rising, but it'll depend on where it has sat. But ultimately, there are different stages. Like you have the Turiya state, you have the Turiyatita state, and you have the one that is above that. Just the way we have the different versions of the different samadhi that you will experience. There is the samadhi that you experience, the Sahaja samadhi that you experience, whereby you're still living, you can still live. There's a marriage between the material and the spiritual. Yeah, so you could just call that. There is a sex between that is the marriage. So that is the coming together and creating something that then brings that third energy into place. But if you do have one of these classic Kundalini rising and you walk right up to that path, and you've gone past that stage where you've come to ground zero, but not just ground zero where there's no mind, but really a ground zero where there's now a total abstinence from an engagement with life, and there's no desire to engage with life. Now, no desire to engage with life, isn't this the same as you feeling numb and you not feeling that you really want to engage with life, because now you know what all of this means, you know what it amounts to, and therefore you don't want to be part of it? Not like that. Yeah, but there'll be those of you who've chosen that other path, and you will have come to the very, very end of it. When you come to the very, very end of it, there is then none of these things take place. Now that is where, if you watch the other 3 posts before this on sex and Kundalini, you will know that in one of the posts we talked about Mahavatar Babaji, for example, and other such people, who have achieved that kind of liberation, and they are just there, but they're able to go in between portals. Do they have a family? Are they existing like other people? No, they're not. Yet, if you see, like, his body is so young, yet he's been there for more than 5,000 years. So you reverse the process. So all that we at the moment hold dear to us, which is the continuation of this race, and this is why we use sex for that, to continue the race. And that's what we want to ultimately do, is to continuously secure the race survives. And therefore we do that, except as time has passed, it has lost its meaning and it has taken another new phase. Now, there will be more on the role of sex and spirituality in another post, but not in this particular one for the purposes of Kundalini. But once your Kundalini has risen, and there is now no more of that sex, there is no mind sex. You've already passed that stage. That is why we say, when you go past a certain stage, then that natural celibacy comes in, and which of course means, now if we were all to go into that state, then you don't want to create. That's why we say that Kundalini is not really designed to be experienced in the full-blown awakening, although you have spurts of that all of the time. You can never really have a totally asleep Kundalini, because you will always experience it, or you have even glimpses of what it will be like during the course of sex, or during the course of inspiration, whenever you experience creative potential, or sometimes art. It comes in all sorts of forms. Everything around you is Kundalini. Life is constantly around us, and creation is always taking place. It is the Maya, the illusion, that is bringing to life everything that we see around us. When you get to that state, then there is no sex, there is no let us create, there is no creativity, but you go and hold a certain space. You're holding that space. So if you are a Jivan Mukta and you've come to that point, in fact, even if you're not, but you are now awakening, moving on to an awakened state. Now, at each point, when you have opened portals, you've accessed dimensions, each point that you have experienced more of that consciousness and you've held more of it, you become an even stronger portal yourself through which another can experience themselves. And that includes your intimate relationships too. So folks, Kundalini rising, depending on where you rest and what is to be and where you have reached, will not always bring you to ground zero, whereby there is no will to create physically, but that will to create will remain, though you will no longer have sex with another, remaining in that constant union of Shiva and Shakti within you. You are holding that state of creative potential within you, generating then around you Kundalini power, Kundalini Shakti around you. So it's like you become that beacon, which is then why these type of realized beings around us will be the ones who can then pass it on to us. But you see, we are not the ones who are going to then lead the life that they are. Yeah? Yet, only they will be walking that path. And it is that path that is not meted out for all of us. And if it comes to a point where there are mass awakenings, that is usually when there is a moment of yug parivartan. And that is why there will be some of us naturally entering into the realm of celibacy when we do have our Kundalini awakening, because that lineage stops with you. Or there will be born of you that one with whom the lineage stops. Yeah, because as we go through Yug Parivartan, then you have the new wave coming in, which we are experiencing in the world right now, which is why you're seeing all of this. But remember, folks, yes, Kundalini awakening is there. It is there all of the time. It's all around us. Kundalini stirring, Kundalini rising. But to go through the full cycle of this with the spiritual awakening, coming into the point of pure consciousness, folks, yeah, it takes you away. So you on your own will be taken away from samsara. But you on your own then become the light for those who want to experience samsara and their divinity, their potential. So people can choose to either adopt that way of, we don't want to now continue with the lineage, yeah, or we do, but we want to experience both, because you can experience all of it all of the time, folks. There will be more on this much later. Take care.